Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Isn't She Powerful podcast. Today, I have a really incredible guest for you. Dr. Deanine Grace is here talking with us about cancer prevention. In this episode, your beliefs about cancer are going to be challenged a little bit because we start off right from the beginning by talking about how only 5 to 10% of cancer is genetic. Otherwise, it is your lifestyle that leads to the development of cancer. And in this episode, Dr. Deanine Grace is going to be talking with us about how we can make changes, simple, realistic changes to our lifestyle to help with the prevention of cancer. I met Dr. Deanine Grace a few years ago. I was speaking at an event that she was tabling at, and I saw that she was doing this book. It's called Cancer Prevention, The Diet and Lifestyle Habits That Cancer Hates. And this is her book. It is such an incredible resource. I was immediately drawn to it because I've had so many family members that have experienced cancer, and we've lost too many people in my life to this disease. But right now, as I am recording this episode, my papa is laying in a hospital and he is fighting for a life that cancer is trying to take from him. I was experiencing that at the same time that multiple of my clients were sending messages saying, hey, I'm loving on this family member. I am watching my dad, my mom, my aunt, my uncle, my cousin, my sibling go through cancer. I'm going to be a little bit absent because I'm trying to support them through this. And as I kept getting those messages, one after another, it became so clear to me that this isn't just something that I want to learn about. It's something that all of us need to learn about. So with that being said, I invited Deanine Grace onto the show. I was like, we need to learn from you. I want you to take all of this in, and I want it to be something that empowers you. I don't want it to be another thing that makes you feel guilty or makes you feel ashamed of your choices or makes you feel like you've completely lost it and you're just screwed and you're definitely going to get cancer. Whatever your mind might try to convince you, listen to this episode, take it all in, and begin to apply this in little doses. If after listening to this, you want help changing your lifestyle, Deanine, she takes clients virtually. She's based out of Atlanta and takes them virtually. I take clients virtually to help with making lifestyle changes that are simple and sustainable. So if you want help with these things, come find one of us. The information for both of us is down in the show notes below, and we would both love to support you in making these changes. But regardless, I hope that this episode is, again, an empowering episode that makes you feel really in control of your destiny, that reminds you that the things that you do, those little choices that you make each and every day, they do matter. They do add up and they do count. Sometimes we think this one time going on a walk is not going to matter that much. This one time of choosing a vegetable, it's not going to matter that much, but it does matter so much. So with that being said, I'm going to welcome Deanine Grace to the podcast now and let you just dig into this episode. Hello, Deanine, and welcome to the Isn't She Powerful podcast.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing really good and so excited for this interview. I've been looking forward to it, honestly, for far longer than I have told you that I've been looking forward to it, because you and I met 2 years ago now at an event. I was speaking, you were there doing a table, and I bought your book and I read it and I was like, I'm obsessed with this woman. I need her on my podcast.
Well, I appreciate it, Laura. I am so very happy to be here. I'm glad we were able to make it work. Thank you for welcoming me.
Yeah, like I said, you know a lot about a topic that I feel so many people, it's a really tender subject. It's hard for people to wrap their heads around, especially some of the things that we're going to talk about in the podcast. I'm ready to debunk some people's beliefs and help people make some changes to their lifestyle to help hopefully prevent cancer for them or help the family members who already have cancer to heal faster and easier. And in your book, the thing that stood out to me the most, and you actually said it to me when we met at our tabling event, you said 5 to 10% of cancer is genetic. Everything else is lifestyle. And that was a major wow for me. I just could not believe that small of a number is what's genetic.
Yes, it is true. It's published in the literature. My background in cancer research, just to give people a little bit of context, I have my Ph.D. in microbiology with a focus on molecular biology. I have worked to develop cancer drugs and cancer treatments for over about 7 years for various pharmaceutical companies. So I've studied cancer quite a bit, and reading a lot of the medical literature, you find that the genetic component or the genetic cause of cancer is very small. And I do list that in my book. And even a lot of the prevention guidelines that are being put out by medical societies, the American Cancer Society, there's a reason why they're focusing so much on the lifestyle aspects of prevention. It's because prevention is key when it comes to the things that you can start removing from your lifestyle.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing a little bit of like, I have a PhD in this. I've been doing this for this long, because I think when people hear that, they're like, this lady is blowing smoke. Like, there's no way that's true. But I hope that through hearing that, people trust you and they're like, okay, let me listen to what this girl's got to say. Maybe I can learn something here. And for the people that maybe that touches a little bit too close to home, like I have had so many family members with cancer and or pass away from cancer. And so it's one of those things, I've heard for years and years and years, oh, cancer runs in our family. I'm probably going to get cancer. Like it's just a common topic among family members that I have. And so for other people who are listening to this and, maybe they heard that and they're like, wait a second, it might not be genetic for me. Talk to them a little bit and give them some reassurance of like, is it too late for them? Have they been doing something wrong all this time that's inevitably going to lead them there? Or could they start making some changes to their lifestyle, like we're going to talk about, that can help them in the end?
Absolutely. I think the changes that we all need to be making are quite important when it comes to the prevention guidelines. And no, it's not too late. It's never too late. I always say that because, even now with the research that's coming out on preventing a secondary cancer, such as preventing a secondary breast cancer, the research is showing that women who exercise or jog for a certain amount of time per week have a drastically reduced incidence of a secondary breast cancer coming up. So we know these types of lifestyle factors are important when it comes to not only preventing an initial cancer, your very first one, a secondary one is important. And I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I got into this because family members were dying of cancer and I was scared. Honestly, just to be very transparent. So I had to start figuring out ways prevention could, be implemented into my life.
Yeah. It's scary whenever you're starting to see family members or friends or people your age, as some of us, as we start to age, somebody our age gets it and it's like, what, that could be me, it's really very scary. And so I guess I have a couple of kind of random questions and then I want to get into the lifestyle things, but there's like random questions that are popping up into my head right now. Childhood cancer. Talk to me about that. If we're saying, is that the ones that are genetic? Like, how can you say it's only lifestyle factors caused a 5-year-old to get cancer? Like, talk to me a little bit about that.
Very good question. So typically the childhood cancers tend to be those that are more genetic. There's several categories where genetics play a huge role. Childhood cancer, certain types of colon and colorectal cancers, and breast cancer and prostate cancers. Those types of genetic types of events that occur in those cancers, yes, that's where that 5 to 10, some people will go as high as 15%. So 5 to 15% are caused by genetics. And also the fact is that sometimes we just don't know, could there be certain things in that child's diet that maybe is turning on some of these genes? We know with breast cancer, for instance, some women that I've worked with in the past, I had one woman that said, well, I have the BRCA gene, the BRCA gene that has been known to induce breast cancer, has been known to cause breast cancer as well as cervical cancer. Recent studies are now coming out that are showing that there is a lifestyle factor that could cause that gene to turn on, that could cause that gene to induce cancer, breast cancer. So yes, the genes are important, but also the lifestyle is also important. And when it comes to childhood cancers, it's really no cut black or white with that.
That is a really Interesting that you bring that up because I was going to ask that question next. For people who have, you're saying breast cancer, and I feel like that one is so prevalent. Prostate cancer, colon cancer. So for people who have those things in their lineage, it's not like a death sentence to them. It's not written in the stars that they're definitely going to get it. Lifestyle can help the prevention of it, even if it is genetic. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, absolutely. I will say that some of the more high profile cases that have kind of been out there, for instance, Angelina Jolie, she was one person that discovered that she did have this genetic mutation in the BRCA gene. And so she decided to do a prophylactic double mastectomy as well as hysterectomy for that reason, if I'm not mistaken. So she was one that was a little bit more proactive because she didn't want to take that risk. There was always something in the back of your mind sometimes when you hear that you are more prone to it, that you're always worried about it. So I never judge anybody that makes that type of decision. However, it is being shown now that it's not a 100% death sentence if you do have that gene. What some people are suggesting, some researchers as well as physicians are saying is, can certain lifestyle factors such as exercise, such as increasing the amount of certain types of foods, more produce, such as removing ultra processed foods. I'm now working with clients and I'm telling them ultra processed foods are like the new tobacco. Seriously, it's deadly, it's addictive over time. And so you want to start removing those ultra processed foods from your diet, because we know the food companies have been tweaking these foods just so that we can get our taste buds addicted to them. Yeah. So, those types of things people can do working with a nutritionist, a dietitian, or a health coach to start to make those transformational changes in their life so they can eliminate some of the bad things from their lifestyles.
I love that. And Denine, what I specialize in is food noise, sugar cravings, and I talk a lot about ultra processed foods in the sense of they are created to make you want them more. And I love that there's a connection between what you talk about and that as well. It's just another signal to us that they need to be something that we pay attention to and limit when possible.
Absolutely. Yes.
So with that being said, I have another random question. You talked a little bit about lifestyle, exercise, increasing certain types of food, decreasing other types of food. What about, this is another random scenario, but what about people who, let's take professional athletes, for example. There was just an athlete recently, a basketball player who died of brain cancer. He's super active, lives a very active lifestyle, right? Lives a very, probably eats super healthy because of that. Has access to a lot of things that we don't have because he's a professional athlete, and yet he still died of cancer. Again, was that genetic? I know you don't know the answer to that question. I'm just curious if, give me that scenario, I guess, break that down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of these more random cases that are occurring in people that we just don't, it's coming out of the blue. Like, why is this happening to that person? Well, quite honestly, there's, I don't know how many more times, harmful chemicals in our environment, the things that we're ingesting. It's no fault of that person, or it's no fault of us. We are in an environment now that is typically very highly toxic. And what we are seeing is, and I've just recently been talking about this, is that the number of younger people who are being diagnosed, and what I call younger are people 50 and under. The number of people 50 and under that are being diagnosed with a cancer has drastically increased in the past 20 years. And the research is now coming out about that. Drastic increases in breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer. Brain cancer is a little bit further down on the list in terms of the numbers and the sharp increases that we've been seeing in these other types of tumors. But the number of people under 50 diagnosed with cancer is drastically shooting up, and researchers are scrambling to try to understand what's going on. So in the particular instance of this young athlete, we're just trying to figure out, it seems random, but we know the increases are happening in younger and younger people.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. I want us to start talking about your cares outline here, because I feel like that is where everything is leading back to, is at some point it's probably one of these 5 things, or it's genetic, right? And that's more rare than one of these 5 things being a part of it. I really appreciate you bringing up the point of it's not anybody's fault. There's nobody to blame. It's not anything to feel bad about or guilty about or feel like we're like victim blaming you. Of course not. That is not at all it. This is more just educational of helping you understand what causes cancer and how you can prevent it or help to heal yourself quickly if you do find yourself or a family member in the situation of having a diagnosis of cancer. It's simply that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I want to start with going through your CARES program because that is it's so foundational, right? Like these are the foundations of so much health and wellness. And so I want to dig into it. It's the start of your book, which I've, like I said, read through and really just loved so much, I will say. The C in CARES stands for cancer fighting foods. So let's start there. Talk me through these foods. What are the do's? What are the don'ts? Just give me some basic outlines for these cancer fighting foods.
Yes, the basic outlines are honestly anything that is naturally grown without a package. I consider that a cancer fighting food for the most part, with some limitations there. Because when you think again about ultra processed foods, those are the foods that you want to be avoiding as much as possible. The cancer fighting foods are the ones that are naturally made. Think about your produce, your fruits and your vegetables. Think about certain types of fish, those that are high in omega-3 fatty acids. Think about the natural high fiber foods, such as your beans. Beans actually have more fiber than whole grains. And so people sometimes forget about the beans. And I know sometimes it may upset folks' stomach, but they're high fiber foods. And those are the foods that are cancer fighting. They're foods that are high in fiber, number one. They are also high in a lot of phytochemicals that's going to create the colors that we find in the food. So I tell people, eat the rainbow. Let's take it back to elementary school. Let's go back to Roy G. Biv, okay? Because, that's your most foundational thing. Every day, can you eat a food from at least 3 of the colors of the rainbow? That's my task to some of the clients that I work with, because prevention is literally step by step. Every single thing, every single bite is an opportunity for you to start preventing cancer.
I love the mention of the variety. One of the very first episodes, this podcast has been going on for over 200 episodes. And within the first 10 episodes, I made an episode all about the power of the color of our fruits and vegetables. Each of them do something different for our body. And if we can diversify our diet in that way, it does so much for our healing in our gut health and all the things. So I love that you mentioned that. That's something that I talk with my clients about so often. I'm like, okay, tell me about the diversity of your diet because it is crucial and so valuable to get different colors in.
Absolutely. Part of my book, one of the strategies that I have in my book, which I have 24 strategies on cancer prevention, one of them is just looking at red fruits and vegetables, as well as yellow and orange, because really those are the ones that have a lot of scientific evidence. So when you look at just red fruits and vegetables, increasing that amount can help to lower your risk of certain types of cancer, such as breast cancer, such as bladder cancer. I talk about yellow and orange vegetables, which have been linked to a lower risk of not only breast cancer, but also colon cancer. When we look at the green vegetables, cruciferous vegetables, for instance, those have been linked to a drastic reduction in breast cancer, prostate cancer, cervical cancer, uterine cancer. So all of these things are important. So when I say, are you eating from the rainbow? Can you just give me a list of 2 or 3 colors of foods that you're eating a day? And ketchup is not one of them, because quite honestly, people are considering ketchup as a vegetable, because there's so much consumption of French fries. There's so much consumption of fried foods where we want to put ketchup on there. Just because it comes from a tomato doesn't mean that it's the actual tomato.
Yeah. I think that's so funny that people are like, yeah, ketchup. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody listening who's like, wait, ketchup isn't a vegetable? I just never would have thought of that. I think it's funny that you get that so often that you are mentioning it here. But with the mention of fiber, and you said beans, they have so much fiber. I love getting a variety of beans into my diet as well. There's so many different kinds. Like we're talking about variety. That's another good way to bring in some variety into your diet. And you mentioned them upsetting your stomach. A piece of that, the reason why that happens is because, like you had mentioned before, with the switches, you said a switch might be turned off. Your switch for digesting fiber has been turned off. And then once you start eating it again, your body realizes, like, oh, we're supposed to digest this food. So it would switch it back on. But you have to train your body to digest those foods. It's because you haven't been eating them enough. We think if I just eat them less, the symptom will go away. But the problem didn't go away. So it's about increasing that. And I know fiber is so important for colon cancer, especially. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's drastically important. When we look at, again, prevention, daily steps that people need to be taken bite by bite, 3 servings a day of whole grains can reduce the risk of colorectal cancer by about 17%. I talk about that in my strategy on increasing fiber. The easiest way that you can start doing some of these things is a green smoothie or even a fruit smoothie. I prefer a green smoothie because at least you're getting those 2 or 3 different colors in there. But even if you just go with a fruit smoothie, because fruits do contain about 2 grams of fiber per serving, vegetables are going to have a little bit more, about 3 grams per serving, whereas your beans is going to be about 6 to 8 grams per serving. But easy ways for you to start getting these things in your diet. And then when you combine the beans with maybe a brown rice, so you can have a more whole complex protein source, you're going to increase your fiber even more.
I love that. Essentially, what we're hearing is increase variety, increase the colors, increase I call them foods that the earth makes. If the earth makes it, it's a good for you food. Because people are so, obsessed with, is a potato good for me? Is it not good for me? Did the earth make it? If the earth made it, it's good for you. Eat it in your diet, right? So increase lean proteins, fatty fishes, and decrease our processed foods. That's what I'm really hearing. You talked about smoothies, but what are some other strategies that you like to use for getting in all of these things and decreasing some of those other things?
Yes, I love that. Quite honestly, I call them what I like to call car snacks. What are your car snacks? Because those are important. What are you eating on the go? We live in a very busy society. Can I get my clients to start packing the healthiest car snacks? I have created a free ebook called Healthy Food Swaps. And so in that, it's part of like, what are we swapping out, like the potato chips? And now what are we including that is healthy? So instead of you going for the potato chips, can you now just carry maybe some small oranges, mandarin oranges that are easy to peel, and some apples? Can you carry some whole fruit instead of the potato chips and the pretzels and all of those things? Little things like strategies like that can get people to switch over from and swap out the ultra processed food and go for more natural foods are the strategies that I like to go for with my clients.
I love that, especially because when people hear stop eating so much processed food, they think I just need to eat less food in general. They don't think about the fact that they should swap it for eating something else so that they're not going hungry all day, because what that does is increases the food noise, increases the cravings, and then you're more likely to binge on all of these foods that you're saying are not as good for us. So it's about making swaps for those foods. I appreciate that idea there.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, people need to be fed because, again, everybody is busy, everybody's on the go. And so if you don't feed your body when it's highly stressed, when it's highly productive, you are going to crash and burn and you're going to go for the completely wrong foods. So why not feed the body first with healthy foods? And then if you do need to take a bite of something I have one particular client that truly just every afternoon, she just had to go for the candy bar. She had to go for the candy bar. And I'm like, listen, we're going to start to swap out that candy bar with something sweet that's naturally sweet. Can we do an apple? What is your favorite apple? Start eating that apple. If you
Mm-hmm.
still need to take a bite of that candy bar after that, fine. Get the very small, one, not the king size candy bar. But my goal was that by her eating that apple, it was like, okay, I'm going to get some nutrients in. I'm going to get some fiber in, hopefully, make myself feel satiated so that if I still have a little bit of craving that candy bar, long story short, she eventually wound up stopping the afternoon candy bars
Mm-hmm.
just by swapping out the candy bar with the apple.
So much of it is that we're actually hungry and we need to
Oh,
fuel our body. And by eating something that's sugary, we're not actually giving our body any fuel. We're giving it sugar that's spiking up our blood sugar and causing a crash later and causing the cycle to continue where we continue wanting and needing more sugar. But when we eat something that has fiber or protein to it, it satisfies our body, like you said, and it gives us what our body actually needed in that at that point in the day in the afternoons, rather than giving it this little treat that we just have to keep eating more and more little treats.
exactly. Yeah, absolutely correct. I think with what I discovered with when I was creating healthy food swaps was that people actually needed to know what it was that they can substitute. And I like the fact, Laura, that you talk a lot about handling food cravings. What can you do to handle those food cravings? Part of that came out of handling food cravings because we know our society is addicted to sugar. We
Mm-hmm.
know our society is addicted to salt. So, what can we swap out for those two heavy hitters where we find food addictions are most prominent? What can we start swapping out there?
What role does sugar play in cancer? Because I had an uncle who passed away from cancer in 2016. He had pancreatic cancer and they told him to stop eating so many little Debbie cakes and he just wouldn't. Like he just kept on eating them and I have such a funny memory of him just sitting there getting his chemotherapy, eating a little Debbie cake while getting his chemotherapy. And I'm, a little bit of inspiration for what I do now, I guess, especially with the sugar cravings and the way that my family and I grew up eating so much sugar. But I'm just curious the role that sugar plays in cancer.
Yes, yes. I'm sorry to hear about your loss. I have unfortunately lost a family member, my mother, to pancreatic
Mm.
cancer about 4 years ago now. And it's devastating because it's one of the worst ones that you can get. Sugar is something that we are rewarded with. Ever since, you're a child, you've been rewarded with sugar. My earliest memories are going to the candy store. My earliest memories are getting those little snacks and treats during snow days. So, it's just ingrained in our society. I'm never one to say sugar is actually feeding cancer or causing, let me backtrack. I should say sugar is not causing cancer, it's indirectly causing it. And it's indirectly causing it because it's creating one of what I call those very detrimental things that happens in the body when we look at increases in blood sugar, when we look at elevated blood sugar levels, when we look at the things that are causing not only potentially cancer, but also other diseases that are high inflammatory diseases like type 2 diabetes, even some of the heart disease that is out there
Mhm.
with these high sugar diets. So sugar is driving a lot of inflammation in the body. It's driving a lot of detrimental effects to tissues in the body. And so it's something that does need to be addressed by addressing the food cravings, by addressing how to start eating more healthier, natural types of sugars.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm going to skip around in your care system here and
Mhm.
skip over the toxins. We'll come back to the toxins. That's a whole separate topic. But I want to go to R stands for renew the gut. And you talk a lot about eating fermented foods in that section. So talk to me about what are some good examples of fermented foods and what role does that play in our overall health and wellness?
Yeah, fermented foods are really great for the gut. Let's think about just yogurt. Let's think about even sauerkraut, fermented cabbage. Certain cultures eat fermented vegetables such as kimchi, as well as now, I would say in the past decade or so, kombucha tea, fermented drinks, which
Mhm.
I always tell clients if you don't like the taste of yogurt, you can really just start with a kombucha tea to get a fermented drink in your diet. Fermented foods are going to provide the healthy bacteria into your gut. It's great for people who have been on a standard Western diet, that diet of like meat and potatoes and fried foods,
Yeah.
every single day. They're going to provide people with healthy bacteria for their gut. Those bacteria, those bacteria are going to add to your microbiome. They're going to help you digest not only the fiber better, but they're going to help make the vitamins and minerals that are typically made in the large intestines, such as your vitamin B, your vitamin K. They're going to help digest food, and they're just going to create an environment where the cells remain healthier. A diverse microbiome is a healthy colon. Period. And so, we just have to start thinking in that way when it comes to our diet. And one of the things I want to say about the gut health is that not only fermented foods, but botanical diversity, which we talked about, right? Like eating a more botanically diverse diet is actually going to create a healthier gut. And studies have shown when people are switched from the standard American diet to a diet that is more vegetarian based, that their gut health changes, the markers change. So this is research that is out there and people can search for it and see it. I've also discussed it in my book.
Right, because it's getting in so many different types of fruits and vegetables. This isn't, saying that you can't have meat. It's saying to include more and more different types of vegetables into your diet. The more you can get in, the better. And talk to me a little bit about, I personally eat a lot of yogurt, but I don't eat like any sauerkraut or any other really fermented foods. Do I need diversity in that as well? Or is one type of fermented food doing me good? Or do I need multiple types of fermented food?
I think it depends on your overall diet as to whether or not you would need more diversity in fermented foods. I would say to try adding in some of the more easier ways to get fermented foods, which is the kombucha tea. Because again, everybody's busy. Yogurt is your go-to, but maybe a kombucha tea might provide different bacteria to add to your microbiome than what's being added to that particular yogurt.
Awesome. And so, what are some of your favorite ways to get in a variety of fermented foods? Do you have, like a little, tablespoon of sauerkraut with lunch, or are you eating a pickle or something like that? I guess, is that a fermented food? So, multiple different types of things throughout the week. Like, what's your schedule if you have one for fermented foods?
Yeah, I would say my particular schedule is yogurt. I would typically add that to maybe a smoothie. So I kind of use some of the non-dairy yogurt, such as coconut yogurt. I will add maybe a spoonful to my smoothie and blend it on in there. Or I would do a couple of spoonfuls and add some berries to it and eat it that way. Excuse me. The other way I would get some fermented foods is, like you said, some of the fermented cabbage. I would add a little bit to my salad. It just gives a little bit of tanginess, a little bit of bitterness to, the variety. It's just going to add more variety to salads, because I know some people, they just don't like eating salads because it's too bland. That's one way I feel like people can add a little bit of more taste and flavor to their salads. And the third way I get fermented foods is through kombucha teas.
Okay. Awesome. You have a certain brand that you drink?
Yes, I like Synergy, and I get the teas that are low in sugar or maybe have a sugar alternative, such as like stevia. But Synergy is a pretty good brand to me, and I've been drinking it for quite a while.
If you are somewhere where you can safely do this, I want you to close your eyes right now. I want you to imagine what your life would look like and feel like if food didn't feel so hard for you anymore. You weren't constantly wondering, what are we going to eat? When are we going to eat it? What are we having for dinner tonight? You weren't always thinking, I should eat that. I shouldn't eat this. If I eat this, I'm bad. I have to eat this. I have to stay away from that. You trust yourself around food. You have the energy that you need to get through the day, and you're no longer starting over every single Monday. You just live your life, and your habits support that instead of being another added stressor. This is exactly what we build inside of my group coaching program, Seismic Shift. Working with me isn't about starting another diet or starting over from scratch. It's about creating healthy habits that fit your real life so that you can actually stick to them. Imagine being consistent without white knuckling it through the day and relying on willpower. Imagine walking into your home and not feeling the urge to run to the pantry. And imagine being the version of you who just drinks her water and goes for her walks and takes care of herself, not because you have to, but because it's just who you are and it's just what you do. That is what Seismic Shift is here for. You can join me right now by heading to behealthyhabits.com/seismic-shift or visiting the link down in the show notes. Again, that's behealthyhabits.com/seismic-shift, or simply go down into the show notes and click the link there. And because I value my podcast listeners so much, you can use the code POWERFUL to get 10% off for life. Let's make this the very last time that you ever start over. So I want to pivot the conversation a little bit to the toxins. We've talked already about cancer-fighting foods. We've talked about renewing your gut, eating more fiber. That's 3 of the 5 things that you dive deep into in your book. A stands for avoiding the toxins. So there's different types of toxins. There's environmental toxins. There's toxins that we're exposed through our food, through the products that we put onto our body. So talk to me a little bit about, first just start with, why is it important that we are aware of the toxins that we're being exposed to?
It's so vitally important because we are bombarded with toxins in our society in this day and age. Just from the runoff from chemical plants, manufacturing facilities, what people put in their garbage, such as batteries and electronics. Those things that are leaching from those particular devices are leaching into our water supply or leaching into our soil. So it's vitally important that you start thinking about it. Our cleaning products, studies have shown that women who clean for a living, when they use these harsh cleaning environments, your bleaches, your ammonias, that they tend to have reduced lung capacity when they're using some of these things. So I talk about in my book ways that you can swap out the more harsh cleaning products that you use in your home for more natural cleaning products. You touched on what we put on our skin. Our skin is our largest organ, as most people know, and we get a lot of different things, different toxins such as phthalates that are found in lotions and creams, makeup that we put on our skin. So looking for products that are phthalate free is important because phthalates, they're endocrine disruptors. They're disrupting our endogenous hormonal system. So by looking for things that are free of these types of contaminants, or by substituting the more harsh cleaning agents with ones that are less harsh, are ways that you can start eliminating some of these toxins from your environment.
I find it so interesting every single time I clean the shower or something in the bathroom, and I try to choose products that aren't as bad, but it just feels like I am being choked by chemicals whenever I go into the bathroom. And I have to wear a mask just to be able to clean, because otherwise I'm like coughing and my eyes are watering. It's so terrible. And those are just normal things, right? Like, that's what everybody uses to clean, and that's what everybody uses to put on their body. And it's just normal to throw away your electronics and drink out of the tap. Like, that's just normal. And so it's really hard to accept that there's all these toxins around us. Like, it feels very discouraging to know that,
it does.
like, for example, the environmental toxins. There's so little we can do about that. And it's frustrating and it's overwhelming and discouraging.
It is. I like everyone do get discouraged. Sometimes I'm like, oh, screw it, whatever. I'm gonna get exposed. But something in me just continues to say to keep fighting. What can you do to try to limit it? What type of filters can I put on my tap water? What type of filters can I put on my drinking water from the refrigerator? Filters on my showers. I had a friend to tell me, yeah, Deanine, you were one of the first people that talked about putting a filter on your shower head. And I was like, yes, because it is important. We do bathe. I hope so. And so, like, you're getting chemicals from that water. and our skin is our largest organ. So why not try to protect yourself while you're bathing? I think
Yeah.
that's just vitally important. But it is discouraging, and I tell people, even if we look at things like the Dirty Dozen food list, which shows you what are the produces that typically tend to have the highest amount of chemicals on them. I don't know, Laura, if you know some of them that you probably do. Things
I've
like
definitely
grape.
paid attention.
Yeah, grapes and apples, because we want those things to look pretty on our grocer's shelves, but they're heavily sprayed. So, can you afford, or are you willing to go the extra effort to clean those types of produce a little bit more thoroughly before you start eating them? Yeah,
Right. And I think it's really important to not get into an all or nothing mindset with it. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to avoid every toxin, and it's impossible. Like, let's
it's
all just
impossible.
accept it's impossible to avoid every toxin ever. So let's just do what we can and know that that's enough, right? Like, wash your vegetables a little bit more thoroughly, pay attention to the products that you're using in your home, put on a filter, and accept that you're doing everything that's within your power to do.
Absolutely. And keep those organs that are known to detoxify the body as healthy as possible, such as your liver. And your liver can be healthy if you stop eating a lot of the ultra processed foods, the trans fatty acids. Focus in on eating more types of foods that are liver healthy foods, such as beets, such as green leafy vegetables, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, cleaning those appropriately before you consume them.
Yes. Okay. So taking care of our internal systems that detox us naturally, as well as paying attention to the products we put on our body and in our body. Talk to me a little bit about the products you use in your home. Are there brands that you like to use for your cleaning agents, for your makeup, for your hair products? Are there certain brands that you like and recommend to people?
Yeah, I like seventh generation. That's one that I typically tend to use for like dish soap. And they also have some cleaning agents, lavender scented ones that I use in the shower, use in the bathtub. In terms of products that I use on my skin, honestly, it's a wide variety. I go sometimes to like Sprouts and Whole Foods supermarkets just to see what's new on the market, just to go in and read labels, because I'll be honest, it's daunting to try to remember all of the toxins that can be in makeup.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just start there. So what I like to do is just go in the market and see, go in these markets and just see what is available and if it's going to fit my particular need. I like a lot of vitamin C serums. So, I try to find like vitamin C companies that tend to be less toxic than others. So I can't name any particular brands right off the top of my head, but those are places that I like to go to try to find some skincare products and makeup that's less damaging.
I love that. And I think it's important to say too, this doesn't have to be an overnight shift for you. I have a friend who she found out about, the importance of the toxins, and she went at 2 a.m. through her pantry, threw out all kinds of stuff, just in tears, sobbing, going crazy over everything that she wasn't allowed to use anymore. And so we had a conversation of, okay, next time let's swap one thing. As your toilet, as your toilet cleaner runs out, let's get a different one. As your whatever runs out, let's get a different one. It can be a slow burn. It doesn't have to be a swap overnight type deal.
Absolutely. That's a good way of putting it. For take for instance the toilet cleaner. Even just a little bit of vinegar and swishing it around the toilet will get rid of a lot of, the dirt that needs to be removed from there. You don't have to, make it a huge effort to go out and or even an expensive effort to go out and try to find things to replace everything that you have in your house now. Start small. Just like with changing your diet, most people are not able to sustain a complete overhaul of their diet in a short period of time.
That's
They
right.
need to go slow. Prevention, like I say, is a step-by-step process that happens every single day, and it's going to take you far, but you just have to be focused on daily habits that you can start changing so that you can start preventing cancer.
Yep. My slogan for my coaching practice is simple is sustainable. When you keep it simple, you can stick to it over time, and that's the ultimate goal. I would rather you stick to it for the rest of your life than stick to it for 3 days. Like I want this
Love
to
it.
be a slow, sustainable change for you. So, cares, the last of this, your S, is self-care. Talk to me about when you say self-care, what does that mean?
That means movement that you love to do.
Mm,
That means de-stressing.
mm,
Those are the two type of self-care items that I always focus in on. What do you love to do in terms of your movement that's going to keep you doing it every single day?
that's right.
For me, it's going to be something different than what it's going to be for you, Laura. However, we know that movement is vitally important for our bodies, and we know that it's important for prevention, cancer prevention, disease prevention when it comes to type 2 diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, those are my two self-care buckets.
Okay, so movement. So there's no, I love that because I always say there's no specific type of movement. It's whatever you're going to stick to. I just want it to be something that you like, so you stick to it. It can be yoga, it can be walking, it can be swimming, it can be weightlifting. I don't care as long as you're moving your body. That's the ultimate goal. And for me, it's weightlifting. I love weightlifting. I do recommend it to people so much because it's so important for our muscle and our bone health. And I do say if in some way you can build up your capacity for not necessarily lifting dumbbells, but like even yoga is body weight. You're still doing some sort of resistance training even with yoga, but I do recommend doing something like that. But in general, it's just about moving your body. Talk to me about walking. I'm sure that walking plays a big role and is beneficial in so many ways. So talk to me about the benefits of just getting up and going for a walk once or twice a day.
Walking is so vitally important. Not only is it good for the body and the heart, right? It's working your cardiovascular system. It's also helping you decompress
Mm-hmm.
from the stressors of the day. It's
Yep.
helping you to integrate all of the crap that has come your way during that day. And it's helping you to just kind of literally digest it and move it out of your head and into your body and out of your system eventually.
Oh,
So walking or running, they talk about the runner's high. You can get a walker's high too. I'm sorry. I'll go for about a 20-minute walk and I'm feeling pretty good.
me too. Me too.
So,
Yes. Especially, I love going on after dinner walks. I try to move my body after I eat every single meal. I talk a lot about the benefits of that through my coaching practice as well. But I love doing that in the evenings with my husband. I leave my phone at home. We go out for a walk, and it's just wonderful just to connect with him. We're not trying to beat any pace. It's just we're out walking, getting some fresh air, getting some late afternoon sunshine, moving our body and connecting with each other. And it feels so good.
absolutely. It's one of the best ways that, like you said, you can connect with another person. And not only that, just connect with yourself.
Hmm.
And if you can do it without anything going on, any distractions such as music or looking at social media, you have these people that are just looking down as they're walking. Try doing it without that. But if you must, go ahead, fine, do it. But I just say that walking is one of those ways that is just an ultimate de-stressor. And stress and cancer are linked. So studies have shown that people who have had these very stressful jobs, they've had those jobs for many years, over 5 years, they tend to have increases in certain types of cancers.
Mm.
We're talking about people who might be air traffic controllers, high stressful job. So, stress and cancer are linked. The research has been a little bit slower to come, but we do know, and I believe it might have been Kaiser Permanente that published that probably over about 70% of disease is linked to stress.
Wow.
So if we're talking about all disease, we look at things, from, like I said, type 2 diabetes to dementia, everything in between. Stress can be linked to those.
Wow. I think that is unavoidable. Stress is an unavoidable part of our life. There's going to be things that happen in our family, things that happen at work, things that happen in general in life that cause us stress. I think stress is at our fingertips now with our phones. We're always looking at something. It might be causing us stress, comparing our life to somebody else, or seeing what's going on in another country or in another state. And so stress is always there for us. So I think it's not about avoiding the stress, it's about learning how to cope with it. What are some of your favorite stress management techniques? Because so many people think it's a glass of wine or a bubble bath or going to get a massage. And sure, those things are pleasant, but that's not true stress relief. You're not getting rid of it. You're putting a band-aid on top of it for 30 minutes. So how do we manage our stress and work through it? What are some of your favorite ways?
Honestly, I like to focus in on the triggers. What's triggering your stress, and can we remove some of those triggers, or can we alter them in some sort of way? So, for instance, I know that during the day, our willpower tends to decline.
Mm-hmm.
So, studies have shown that. So, what can you do early in the day to manage your stress or those triggers for stress and try to keep them out of the rest of your day? For instance, if it's social media, if you know certain things are going to trigger you, and we already know that, well, there's a high profile lawsuit against one of the social media companies that, these apps are addictive.
Yeah.
Well, if your willpower is declining during the day, you really only need to be doing the things that, you find quote unquote addictive kind of earlier in the day, because you don't want to continue to do it. You're just going to keep going down a rabbit hole. So when it comes to like things like social media, look at it at first thing in the morning, or whatever you need to do there, go on about your day and then focus in on eliminating it the rest of the day. Your willpower is going to be less later on in the evening, and you're just going to be more prone to scroll for 2 hours at a time and realize like, okay, it's time to go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I've done none of what I was supposed to do because I've been scrolling for the past 2 hours and been being fed a constant diet of things that's going to trigger my stress.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to, like you say, not focus in on the band-aids, but focus in on how do you actually start removing the triggers from your life.
Totally. I like to put a physical barrier between me and my phone. That's why when we go on our walk, I leave it at home. At past a certain time at night, it's in my bedroom. I'm not. It's already on the charger. I'm out in the living room, spending time with my husband, reading a book, doing a puzzle, watching TV, whatever that may be, not on my phone. I put a physical barrier between it because that's what it takes for me. And I'm not ashamed to say, yeah, I probably am addicted to my phone because they want me to be addicted to my phone. So I'm going to do whatever it takes. For me, that's putting it in another room.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you said, whatever you need to do to create that barrier there, or what is it going to take? What is the one thing that you need to say, this is causing so much issues in my life that I must not do it, So, things such as interacting with certain people, are they causing you stress? I was just having this conversation with a colleague, and it was like, I have to stop talking to this person because they stress me out. I
Mm-hmm.
can't do it. And I have to be there for my family, for my children, so they had to stop talking to that person. Those are the types of things that requires a lot of self-agency. Some people don't really know how to do that though. So I think that's where, a counselor, licensed counselor can help, therapist, et cetera, can help you walk through those.
Absolutely. Just start paying attention to when you're feeling that stress. Okay, what was I just doing? What was I doing prior to this? Or what am I possibly doing in this moment right now that is leading me there? Your intuition always knows. You're intuitively going to feel the stress coming on, and you're going to know. We just got to pause and pay attention. So life is moving around us so fast. We're always distracted by something. We don't pay attention enough.
Right. So true. We're not paying attention. We're not being mindful. It's one of those things that requires a lot of self introspection, which can come through, just going out for a simple walk and, going through after you go through like the list of your grocery shopping needs and, what everybody else in the house needs and what you need, maybe you start thinking about some of these things, but you can't do that if you're always glued and always connected.
Totally. I 100% agree. So, Denise, we've talked a lot, spent most of this conversation talking about cancer prevention. Talk to me about if somebody listening to this, or somebody already has a cancer diagnosis, or they have a family member who has cancer diagnosis. Talk to me about, will these things also help them? What of these things should they be prioritizing? Talk to me a little bit about if somebody who already has a diagnosis, what do they do?
So it's interesting that you asked, because I have in my book where I talk about, ways that breast cancer patients and survivors can lower their risk of a second diagnosis. I think honestly, and I'm going to read a couple of these things because I think that they're vitally important for people to start looking at, because even if you're a patient right now, the research now is coming out that's showing that there's things you can start doing, such as the stress reduction, vitally important. And a lot of the cancer clinics, a lot of the treatment clinics are now incorporating mindfulness meditation, mindfulness techniques for cancer patients, because they know it helps improve not only their quality of life, but potentially their survival outcomes. So, one thing to look at when it comes to preventing a breast cancer recurrence is exercise. And I talk about this. It's important because it has a drastic impact on breast cancer recurrence. That when you look at exercise, the role of it, about 22 different studies, and this was what we call a review paper, showed that about a 40% decrease in death due to breast cancer in breast cancer survivors. Okay, so that's important. It's shown to lower the internal hormones that might be fueling breast cancer. That's what exercise does. So that's just one particular area. When we look at dietary fat, and I talk about this in terms of trans fatty acids as one of the strategies in my book. So in the women's interventional nutritional study, it showed about a 24% lower risk of breast cancer recurrence in postmenopausal women who reduced their dietary fat by 15%.
Okay.
So these are women who are breast cancer survivors who were able to lower their dietary fat to reduce their risk of death and recurrence. That's key.
So when you say reducing fats, give me examples of what you're talking about here. Are you talking about the avocados, the olive oils? Are you talking about, what are we talking about when you say that?
So that could be any type of dietary fat, but the key and the focus is on the fats that are coming from the processed foods and the fried foods. Right? So if you're lowering your fat by 15%, the easiest thing to take out are the fats that are coming in from processed foods, and keep the fats that are healthy, such as your avocados and olive oil.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to start lowering it.
That makes perfect sense. And I think that's a really good thing to know, and just to start being aware of, is there are things that you can do in terms of your lifestyle. It's not just about getting the radiation and all of the other, treatments that we're given. Sure, do those things, save your life, right? But also there are other things you can be doing in terms of your lifestyle that can help it along, so that you can, get healthy and feel good as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, even when it comes to the diet while cancer patients are on their treatments, it's always best. And I tell cancer patients to talk to their healthcare provider, find a nutritionist or a dietitian who works with cancer patients, so that they can start giving you ways to start eating healthier without it being a fear that it might interrupt with your treatments. Because I know that's one thing providers are concerned with. Some patients, the studies show that like 70% of people who are diagnosed with something tend to go to complementary medicine, tend to go to alternative medicine. This may or may not be a good thing if you're on cancer treatment. So it's vital that you talk to your healthcare provider about some of the changes you want to make, and then go through somebody who is skilled enough to give you advice on what to start changing that won't impact the way that you're currently being treated.
And that's what you do, is that right? This is how you help people.
I help them by health coaching as a cancer patient advocate, ensuring that, so I'm considered a cancer health coach. So I ensure that they're able to make the changes that they've been given for their lifestyle to start to implement them, because going through cancer treatment is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. So the last thing you want to be doing is trying to, add more green smoothie in and start eating more vegetables. Like, you just want to go home and take a nap.
That's right.
And I get that. And so you have to approach cancer patients just to make sure that they feel empowered, that they can make these changes on a good enough timetable where they could start seeing some differences in terms of their energy and their vitality and their quality of life.
So, Deneen, how did you get into this work? What led you here?
Oh, wow. So I got into this work because of my family members who were succumbing to the disease. My grandmother succumbed to breast cancer. That's on my mother's side. On my paternal side, my other grandmother succumbed to cancer, lung cancer. And then, unfortunately, my mom passed away a few years ago to pancreatic cancer. So it's been rough, seeing family members. But when my grandmother was diagnosed, I realized that she really didn't have the energy and sometimes the words to interact with their healthcare providers. And because I was already working in the healthcare field, working in science and medicine, she asked me to just really talk to her doctor and just kind of be that translator between the physician and the patient. And so I realized that there was room for a health advocate, of somebody who can really help cancer patients navigate the healthcare system. So I started off working in cancer patient advocacy. And then as I transitioned into my full-time career as someone that was working in cancer research, I started reading a lot of the studies and saying, oh, wow, prevention actually can happen. Like, this is not just a throw of the dice and, oh, I'm going to get cancer and you don't get cancer. It's really focuses in on some of these lifestyle factors that can help with cancer prevention. So that's how I got into this.
I appreciate that. My aunt is that person in our family because we've had so many people who have had the disease, and she is a nurse, and so she's always the point person. If something's going wrong with somebody medically, call Aunt Tracy. She's gonna be there at the doctor's appointment to help us know what they're saying, because it's important to have that person there who can help translate and then also help implement some of the things that they've been telling you to do. So I love that you are into this work. Your work is so valuable and you are so appreciated for the work that you do. I'm going to leave a link down in the show notes for your book, because everybody needs to get this book and they need to read it. I'm so serious. It's easy to read because it's large. Like it feels like it's not like you're reading, a book with tiny font. Like, it's easy to read and so informative. I would love to get the link from you for your ebook for your healthy food swaps. But is there anything else? How can people find you? Is there anything you want them to know about working with you? Tell us a little bit about where people can go if they want to talk to you more.
Absolutely. So they can go to thecancerdetox.com, just how it sounds. And so they can schedule a complimentary call with me to just talk. I talk with a lot of people all the time. They want to bounce ideas off of. I'm happy to do that. So they can schedule a complimentary call there. You can also find the healthy food swaps at thecancerdetox.com/downloads. And also, I have my latest webinar up, which is focused in on one of the silent enemies of cancer prevention for women under the age of 50. That's where I also, if you look at the webinar, you'll also be able to find the healthy food swaps, as well as the 5-day smoothie challenge ebooks. Those 2 ebooks you're going to get when you watch the webinar. I'm going to give you that link as well. That is bit.ly/well lady prevention, WELL lady prevention. So webinar there. That's my latest one. And also the 2 free ebooks, healthy food swaps and smoothie challenge.
I will make sure all of that is linked down in the show notes below so that everybody can go check it out. They can learn from you. I know you are based in Atlanta. You work with people everywhere though, right? Like people don't have to be in Atlanta to work with you.
That is correct. I work with people all around the country.
All right, amazing. Deanine, thank you so much for this incredible conversation. I hope that this was eye-opening for the people who listened, and I hope that it is another motivating factor to start making some changes, start making some changes with the foods that we're eating, with the lifestyle that we're living, because there's big implications to these things. We always say, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll start next week, but there's bigger implications than just the weight on your body for these lifestyle changes. So I really hope that people learn so much from this, and I just appreciate you coming onto the podcast and sharing all of your knowledge.
Oh, yes. And oh, Laura, I forgot to mention the book. Of course, you can drop the link to the book in the show notes, but the book is called Cancer Prevention, the Diet and Lifestyle Habits That Cancer Hates. So they can go there. They can buy the book as well. You can also, it's linked in my website. So yeah, so it's on Amazon, very easy to get. They have the ebook version as well as the hardcover and the soft cover.
Yeah, once again, it'll be in the show notes. Everybody go on down, grab your copy. I look forward to hearing what you learned from it. I'm sure Deanine, you can reach out to her on social media and you can tell her all about it. Her information will be down in the show notes, guys. So go check her out and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks for being here, Deanine.
Thank you so much, Laura, for having me.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you again next week. And always remember, the more you know, the more you grow.